Manufacturing can mean a lot of things. It can mean a few really big things. It can be fancy things. Whew, this is very nice. This stuff, and this stuff, no matter what you manufacture, more is going into it than most people realize. Take trains. When you think of trains, maybe you think of this, or this, or this. But making trains also involves this. It involves that. Sometimes it's about this. The fact is, like manufacturing itself, trains connect and power economies around the world. The people who do it source parts and raw materials. They oversee maintenance. They run financials, operational planning, and ESG reporting. They manage the workforce. They make decisions based on AI-driven analytics. All that to make trains. It's complicated. And the companies that do it best run it all on a cloud-based platform, a system that unites finance, planning, HR, supply chain, and manufacturing with IoT, AI, and machine learning. The result? Smart factories with insights and predictions from every point in the business. With real-time visibility, better process control, increased output and quality. All for a happier and more efficient workforce. Because when every handoff, every transaction is all part of the same integrated system, then building resiliency, sustainability, and a shared culture becomes second nature.
Now boarding.
I got a train to catch.
Please welcome to the stage Group Vice President for Oracle, John Barcus.
No more. The midnight sky is the road I'm taking. Head high up in the clouds.
Good morning. Hope all of you are wide awake, ready for another great day. I imagine all of you went to bed real early last night. And we appreciate everyone showing up. It's really great to be in person. It's awesome to be able to get to meet people again, be able to interact. I think today we're going to have a really great session. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and hopefully you're going to learn a lot from it. We have two really great customers along with PwC. They're going to talk a little bit about it. Today's session is driving full-scale enterprise transformation with Oracle Cloud. And I think in today's world, we know there's lots of things going on, and transformation is a theme that's really on everybody's plate. And hopefully that's one of the reasons why you've came out here, is to learn a little bit more about how you can transform and transform faster. So what I'm going to do is introduce them, bring them up to the stage. It's going to be a panel discussion. I think one of the opportunities that you have is to ask questions if you so choose. If any of you have downloaded the app, and you can go into the app, and on the app itself, there's a place for a chat and a place for questions. You can actually ask questions, then we'll monitor those. I'll monitor those here. And in addition to that, we have a couple of microphones. And so depending upon how this goes, we'll give you the right to go ahead and ask questions and learn a little bit more about these great customers here. So the first one, I'll introduce Ryan Hebert from PwC. So come aboard. The next will be Melissa Hempel from ADS, Basman Alias from Astec, and then Sujoy Choudhury from Pricewaterhouse also. Very much. Okay, so first off, we're just going to go ahead and kick this off, and I think the idea is for you to hear as little from me as possible and hear from these folks here. They're going to tell you a little bit about their experiences and their companies and background, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for you to learn a lot from people that are actually doing, hopefully, what many of you are doing or what many of you are planning to do. So the first thing I just want to start out with is, we all know it's no secret that the world's been changing. There's a tremendous amount of turmoil and challenges, and in particular for manufacturing, that's definitely been the case. I mean, we know there's supply chain volatility. That's been going on for a variety of different reasons and different ways. Before the pandemic even, there's a lot of employee shortages and the ability to reskill talent and to be able to bring them on board, keep talent. And that's ongoing and continues to be an issue. I think this new one now around capital. So this is really an old problem that's come into a new one where now all of a sudden there's a cost of capital that's increased significantly in big challenges. And then we have all of the issues around compliance and just tremendous amount of reasons for for change and for companies to really be, you look at the way they do business significantly different, really to really adapt to that change as quickly as they can. So I want to start with Ryan. And Ryan, maybe, I know you work with a lot of manufacturing companies, maybe you can just give us a little perspective on some of the things that you're seeing.
Sure. So let me start by saying I'm very blessed, right? I have a great job. I get to fly around the world and talk to all of our manufacturing clients and just listen to what's on their mind, right? And I'm trying to think of the right phrase to kind of summarize what I'm seeing out there. And I guess the best thing that comes to mind is that old saying of, it's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem, right? So when we take a look at our manufacturing clients, there's three main themes that I tend to hear a lot from them. First, the labor thing is a big thing, right? There's no getting away from that. It's not going to get easier. It's only going to get harder. And we are putting in programs for retention of labor, for attracting of labor. But one thing that we need to look at is how do we reduce the fundamental need for labor overall? PwC is a good example of that. We went through a huge investment where we're digitally upscaling our labor force. And part of the reason we did that was so they could figure out how to automate mundane tasks, excuse me, and basically eliminate chunks of work that they do. So on a gross level, reducing that overall need for labor. So I think manufacturers can look at different ways in which they can reduce that overall need. Next is this whole notion of X or everything as a service, right? As manufacturers, what do? We design things, we build things, we ship things, and in some cases we install things. Now we're getting hit with these crazy multi-element deals, hardware, software, services. The services components can be everything under the sun in different directions, and we're not used to handling those models, right? Our systems and internal processes are not ready to handle those, and those are extremely beneficial deals because the margin on the services and the software side is quite substantial. So many of our clients are looking at cloud as a reason just to enable new business models, to be quite honest. The last thing I'll touch on is volatility. It's probably the biggest thing that I talk about with our manufacturers, right? We got a good 20-year run easily of very stable supply chains. Yeah, we had some bumps in 08 and other areas, but we were pretty stable. And our systems of the past handled that quite well. And now we hit this period of volatility, and people don't know what to do, right? The monthly S&OP cycles and the weekly production planning runs are no longer capable of handling the needs that we have out there, right? The speed of decision making is so fast now that it's moved from those monthly cycles to days, minutes, almost the speed of thought, right? So we need applications, systems that can simulate very, very quickly, understand the financial impacts of those, and launch action into production really quickly. So those are the ones that are kind of top of mind that I'm hearing from my clients.
Thanks, Ryan. Before we get into Melissa and Basman, maybe Sujay, you have anything to add on that?
Sure. I think Ryan made really great points, but the one thing that I hear in addition to what he's been talking to clients about is our clients are really worried about non-traditional competitors, right? People who've come in and completely changed the way that they look at their market, they look at their customers. You have suppliers working upstream. You have people coming out and having B2B portals that automatically sell the products that people were building here and doing value-added services to. So I think that's really driven a lot of the needs for why our clients are looking at digital transformation, right? And we find that most of the people we talk to come up with digital transformation is a must now. And getting to the cloud is one of the ways that they've been transforming. So the path to cloud isn't necessarily just about moving an on-prem, an EBS, an environment over to the cloud, but it's your one opportunity to change the way you do business for the next 20 years. And that's what people want to go after. It's hugely important.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Melissa now. And I think one of the things that you're going to hear from both Melissa and Basman, they've completely taken different strategies. And I think it's going to be really interesting for you to hear some of Melissa, maybe you can introduce yourself, introduce your company a little bit, and maybe some of what you're working on.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Melissa Hempel. I am the Director of Supply Chain Planning for Advanced Drainage Systems, otherwise known as ADS. I have been in planning all of my career, so I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. I love a puzzle. I don't know, you can say whatever you want to say. Clearly, supply chain has definitely thrown a loop in planning over the past 2-3 years now. But I have joined ADS about 2.5 years ago, and we had outlined that we needed to move forward in terms of planning and establishing a good foundation for a centralized planning organization. But backing up to ADS. So ADS, our tagline is, "Our reason is water." And what that means for us, and to give you an idea, is we design, we manufacture, and we sell water management systems. We have the capture, the conveyance, the storage, and the treatment of water. So it is our most precious resource, and that is our area of expertise. A couple other features about the company. It is based in Columbus, Ohio. It was started in the 60s. And we actually have 3 unique things that are occurring. We are the largest user of recycled materials in the United States. Over 500 million pounds last year alone, and we continue to want to make sure that we focus on that as we move forward. If you look at the center photo, we move pipe, and we make a lot of pipe from 2 to 60 inches, and we have assets that we move to make that happen between our 36 locations. And then lastly, we are actually a little bit of a logistics company as well. So we move pipe from location to location, plant to plant. We move our pipe from plant to customer, and we move our pipe from plant to DCs, of which we have 28. So when you think about supply and supply chain, there's many different dimensions to what we do at ADS in the supply planning space. So, as I mentioned, we needed to establish and stand up a centralized planning organization. So what did that mean? It meant that there was going to be a significant amount of change. It meant that we needed to have a system to support that, given some of the dynamics that we face in our environment with our machinery and our locations, and that we can do so with a much greater level of transparency and integration than what we had. So that was our requirement. And there was some challenges along the way because of some of our uniqueness, but really through great partnership, we got there with PwC and Oracle and the cloud, and it moved us forward, I think, to a really good position today.
Melissa, thank you so much. And again, very complex company, what you work with. And Basman, maybe you kind of introduce yourself and the company a little bit too.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, John. My name is Basman, and I'm leading the transformation effort at Astec Industries. And first, I'll just give you an idea of what Astec does. It's an equipment manufacturer that focuses on manufacturing of aggregate equipment, as well as asphalt plants, concrete plants, as well as road building. What we'd like to call it is rock to road. And the way to think about it is, in order to get the road that you see today is, first you start with crushing rocks. And then from there on, you screen the rocks, wash the rocks, and once you have aggregate at the end of that process, we're making all that equipment that goes into making that aggregate. And the next step is to turn it into either asphalt or concrete. So we have plants that we're producing for our customers that create asphalt and concrete. And finally, we have road building equipment. So that's everything from road recyclers as well as laying of the road, so your pavers. Now, Astec is made of 17 different brands, and it's built on acquisitions, which is fairly common in our industry. And up until 2019, our company was completely decentralized. So we had 17 different presidents that ran their companies in silos. That means separate IT, separate finance, separate procurement, supply chain. They were all running in different silos. And in 2019, with our new CEO, we decided to change our strategy. We decided to go with a one Astec mentality because we really wanted to serve our customers better. If you think about our customers, it used to be that they each of them focused on one side of our business that we're looking at, but more recently, they've actually consolidated on their end. So we're serving the same customer through multiple sites. So it was important for us to become customer-centric. And in order to do that, we needed data. Well, if you have 17 different siloed ERPs, which we have right now, it's really hard for us to become customer-centric. You don't have the supply chain data, you don't have the finance data, you don't have the item master data. That made it very difficult for us. So that's when we decided that we needed to transform what we're doing today, and that's when we decided to take on our Oracle transformation. We wanted to replace our current and inadequate ERP systems so we can have one single source of truth when it comes to our data. We wanted to standardize a lot of our processes, but also have a better control around our reporting so that it's consistent look and feel to us internally, but also to our stakeholders. So that's our customers, that's our suppliers, and everyone else around us.
Thanks, Basman. Let me go ahead and get into some questions. That's great. Let me ask, you elected to take this approach where you're going to do a big bang. You want to do one large implementation, execution, very, very long, potentially painful. Tell me some of the reasons maybe why you took that approach.
Yeah, and I was just mentioning we had 17 different silos, 17 different ERP systems, so data was critical for us. Item master is different across everywhere. Supplier master is different across the board. And the only way that we can make sure that we had consistency was to go with a big bang approach from that standpoint. So that's the data front, but also on the process front, we had a different process in terms of how we tackled everything at every single site. So taking an example in terms of engineering change orders, right, as a process. Well, that touches every single function of almost every single function of the organization. It touches obviously your engineering, your manufacturing, your product support, but also finance, because there is a cost to this. And if we're all speaking different languages, using different data points, it makes it very difficult for us to be able to understand what the decisions that we're making, the impact of those decisions that we're making. So going big bang actually helped us standardize some of our processes that are done differently across the globe, which was critical for us.
Right. So it would have been very difficult to go halfway in anything that you were doing because you wouldn't have got the value in accomplishing that.
Yeah, and again, when we looked at our options, attacking it from a functionality standpoint would have taken us a lot longer. Going the big bang route, and given the fact that a lot of our legacy systems actually were not being supported anymore, going big bang was the easiest and fastest way to get there. So.
That's awesome. And then Melissa, you took a completely different approach, right? So you actually focused on planning initially, and your goal is to get to the same point where you wanted to complete business transformation. That's what the objective you want to go through, but you actually started with planning. Why did you do that?
We did start with planning, and specifically, and I would say there's a couple things to that. Demand, as we know, continues to outpace supply, and I think that in our space, really what we needed to focus on was getting those 39 manufacturing locations more in sync in terms of understanding how they were supporting that demand more effectively. And we needed the visibility, we needed the opportunity to centralize our planning processes. These were not centralized at all. And I think the win for us is, given the current climate, being able to do this and expedite the results and the benefits now versus a longer transformation that we do intend to get to. But we needed to have that benefit sooner rather than later.
So again, one of the opportunities that you've just articulated is, in doing so, you can get to an ROI quicker, and has been successful in doing that, or?
Well, we are still in the hypercare phase right now. But yes, I would say the things that we are seeing in terms of improvements are the visibility, the communication, the clarity of messages. As you are sitting in the centralized position, you are more in lockstep across the team internally at this, and as well as being able to be more clear about the reasons of why. And you're getting buy-in then from the manufacturing location and the home office location as well. So our ROI from a numbers standpoint is definitely starting to see an uptick, but the change management side of the improvements we're seeing are really significant, which also leads to better customer service and or expectation setting for our customers.
You were able to tackle some of your biggest problems, address those first, and start to actually get benefit while you actually continue down your transformation journey.
Absolutely. Yep.
Melissa, you had another unique characteristic, right? So when you think about it, you went and implemented the planning piece, but you actually have some very unique requirements particular to how you manage your assets and the tooling and such. And maybe talk a little bit about that and then how you solve that problem.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we do manufacture our pipe across 37 different locations, and we move our assets from one location to another. Not every location or manufacturing location has every asset, the tool and the die and the molds on site. So we're actually planning now those moves, and we plan the duration of the run, we plan the downtime, and we plan that transportation from one location to another. And originally, a year or two back, all of that was done in Excel. It was not integrated into the system. And I think that has been one of the biggest wins that we've had. And we did that through a past application. And working with PwC and understanding what the cloud allows us to do and to build through that flexibility was significant. It was probably the biggest gap that we needed to fill. So there was a lot of skepticism, I will say, internally on whether we could actually do this or not, and we did it. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you took your whole planning process, and one of the constraints was this movement of tooling between plants, and you provided that as an input to the planning process, which is really a unique way of solving it. And Ryan, you actually did this with a PaaS extension. I'm just curious, you use the same tooling that Oracle uses when we build our applications around Visual Builder, and what was your experience in building out this application?
Absolutely, and we could spend an hour getting into detail about the complexity of this PaaS application. It is extremely complex. But what the positive side of it is, to the user, it's no different than cloud, right? We built it on the same framework. You log into it. It just becomes part of the natural planning process as you're using S&OP, supply planning, and tool scheduling planning, which is the PaaS part. You don't know the difference of where you're at. Right? It's just seamless to the end user, and I think that's the fundamental biggest value of it all.
Great. And what about protecting upgrades? And
it's built in a way that we're just using the standard APIs. So, John, unless you tell me that whole framework is changing, which I can't imagine it will, we'll be covered through upgrades quite easily.
Because you didn't really touch any of the core code.
No, absolutely. Okay. You wouldn't even allow us to do that even if we wanted to.
I was just testing you. Just wanted to make sure. Hey, and then Basman, you took a completely different approach. And a complete transformation of your company, processes across the board, very, very broad footprint, and yet you've articulated that there's really no extensions that you can do. And tell me, that's kind of tough sometimes, because people sometimes want to do the same way that I did it before in the new system. I want the system to look the same as it. How are you successful in implementing that strategy?
Yeah, so we have a leadership team that understands the importance of making sure we're standardizing. And our CFO has made it very clear that we want to make sure we have ruthless standardization. But at the end of the day, we have a design review board, and I'm chairing that board. So we make sure that no changes pass through without coming through me. So that's where the buck stops, I guess you could say. And we've made sure that we're not putting through any customization. So.
That's great. And then I got to imagine there has to be some cultural shift in order to make that happen, right? For you, how are you successful in driving the culture to encourage that behavior?
Again, the place where I'm lucky in terms of my transformation role is we have a lot of legacy systems that are just not working well for us. So selling the story of what we're going to be able to provide to someone on the shop floor, to someone in HR, to someone in finance, where they want to do better. And today, we talked a little bit about talent acquisition as well. When you're bringing in new talent, they want to focus on that digital transformation. They want to be part of that journey. And that's really something that we've really wanted to focus on as well. So,
no, that's great. So let's see. So I'll go back to Melissa a little bit. So why you had to go through a process of choosing what solution you wanted to use, and you chose Oracle. Mm-hmm. What were some of the reasons that you chose Oracle?
We're an Oracle shop, so that was obviously a real benefit to us. And I think that in looking at where we were, we had ASCP, and as I identified, we had this need to continue to support our assets moving. So to do that, we really needed to move forward, and we could invest money in ASCP, or we could have taken the same effort and investment and really move forward with the cloud and that PaaS application that Ryan was just talking about. So for us, it was a pretty easy decision as we looked forward to see what the capabilities were and what we could leverage that we already knew about and continue to take the business forward.
Can I pile on that for one quick second?
Yeah.
So, taking a look at it, you're Oracle shop, and took the hypothesis of why not Oracle in the beginning, and if you take a look at what you could do in ASCP and the speed in which your solution needed to operate in, and the ability to move things quickly, make decisions, change things, rerun the plan, run a simulation, you couldn't do that in ASCP, right? So it was the cloud was very conducive to the end user, and I think that was a big selling reason why to go to cloud.
Yeah.
Right. And then Basman, you also selected Oracle, fortunately for us, and hopefully fortunately for you too. Why? What were some of the reasons that you selected Oracle?
Yeah, so with 17 different ERPs, we really had a clean slate in terms of choice. And we never used Oracle before, so this gave us an opportunity to really assess what our options are. And we looked at 2 other options. But really what it came down to is the functionality that Oracle gave us across the board. So like I said, we weren't attached to anything, but when we looked at everything that was available to us, it was clear to see. Not only that, we knew we had to do it quickly. So when we looked at our implementation costs, Oracle, when it came to the cloud, it was the quickest way to get there as well. And then after that, we also assessed what our cost is and how we're going to get the most efficiency. So it's not only the upfront cost that we evaluated, but in the long term, the efficiency and the reduction in cost from an IT support standpoint had the right business model for us to go forward with Oracle.
So the other thing, when we talked a little bit before, you talked about why you selected PwC as an implementation partner. Maybe you can discuss some of the reasons that you took that approach.
Yeah, so we had already decided that we're going to go on HCM because we needed to be off our old ADP system that we're using. And we decided to actually go with a boutique firm first to help us implement HCM. And that failed the first time around. And we knew that we needed to do a much bigger transformation with the ERP, so we took a step back and understood what our options are. The first thing that we saw is PwC was one of the few firms, one of the few implementation partners that can actually help us focus on the entire scope. Other mid-tier firms were, very good at ERP or very good at HCM, very good at CX, but PwC is actually able to offer support for the entire functionality of Oracle, which made sure that for us, given the speed that we wanted to transform, it reduced the risk for us overall, so we wouldn't have delays. Also, another thing is PwC as well, going through this type of transformation, we knew it was more than just having the right systems integrator. We knew we needed a partner, and what I mean by that is going through a transformation like this is not only do you need to make sure that the system is up and running, you really got to focus on your change management, got to focus on your training, you have to focus on your SOPs. We're really literally writing all our SOPs all over because all our processes are changing. And then also, they have all the resources to think about what happens after we go live. For example, our IT support model is something we're looking at right now to make sure that we have the lowest cost, but also the best way of going about it. So they have the right resources for us to make it happen. But also, finally, there's also model systems that was very attractive to our senior leadership. That maybe I'll have Sujay also comment on it.
Sure. Thanks, Basman. So, when we talked to the CFO and the CEO, they really glommed onto this idea of what the model system was for us. And it is essentially a pre-configured Oracle Cloud instance, which has everything from CX, EPM, financial, supply chain, HCM, all in one platform. The attractiveness of that model was so good because they could see that within 3 weeks of kickoff, they have their people transacting in the system. There was an ability to see how the system operated while they were thinking of what that target design looked like. And that was really important to them because they didn't want to go through the traditional, let me gather requirements, go back and figure out what that design might look like, and then 3.5, 4 months later, they actually see the first prototype. So that model system, the ability to access some of the leading practices, the IP that PwC brings to this table was really attractive to the C-suite, and they told us that's one of the main reasons they chose us.
Awesome. And then Melissa, again, you also selected PwC. What were maybe some of the reasons and your experience with them?
So we had some other engagements with PwC in the past, and so I think there's, when I think about knowledge, they knew ADS, they knew some of the complexities. From a knowledge base also, you have the supply chain knowledge and the depth that you have with the PwC team, and this gentleman right here. So I think—
I pay her for that, by the way.
So, from a knowledge base, you have that as well, and then also knowledge of the cloud, because as we talked about, we had a very discrete challenge that we needed to solve, and when we threw that challenge out there, it was clear that they were engaged and interested in helping us through that. So it was a very good partnership for us as we went through the planning effort.
Great. Hey, so I've been told that the app's not working as it relates to asking questions. So if any of you want to ask questions, you can come up to either of the microphones, and I'll give you a couple minutes to go ahead and consider what questions you might ask. And in the meantime, I'll continue this conversation. So Sujay, you have worked with Astec and a number of different companies. What are some of the maybe some of the experience that you have in order to ensure success in these transformational projects?
John, it's a really interesting question, and all our clients have a different definition of success. But when we come down to it, there are a few elements that are really important. And while the journey to get to that cloud instance is one big effort, I think we find a lot more lasting value when there's adoption. Right? Adoption seems to be one of the biggest Achilles heel for companies to sustain. And the only way we see that really coming together is having that robust change management program, right? And it's not just, let's go do some trainings for people, get them really interested in what we're doing. It is bringing them along for the journey. John, and I think, Basman and I had these conversations several times. The biggest impact of this is not in the offices. It's at the shop floor. Convincing people who've been there 20 years doing it a certain way go do something different is a whole different ballgame than catching someone who's new. The second reason as to why is the point that both you and Ryan made, which was around attracting the labor that you need today. Some of the younger workers, and I feel like I'm part of the older worker generation with my beard and everything, but they're not interested in looking at green screens. It's very hard to convince them to really work in that environment. They'll quit. So what we've done is, through a series of sort of engagements down at the shop floor level, and when we talk about shop floor, I'm not talking about the general manager. I'm not talking about the procurement manager. I'm talking about the supervisor who is making sure that they're talking to the production floor workers, the schedulers. They're the people that you need to affect change. And we've instituted a program where they're really embracing this change. They're really excited because they've been part of the design journey. And now, in fact, last week, we just finished our P3 exercise. We had a room full of about 60, 65 people sitting there going through each of the motions of what's going on. They want to see the connectivity between the modules. And that's really generated a lot of excitement, right? So to me, affecting the people down at that level, at the shop floor, is really what creates lasting value for companies, and that's when they start seeing the benefits of that adoption.
That's great. And then Ryan,
if you had any other.
Oh, Basman, you have anything to add?
No, I mean, adoption for us has been critical, and we've developed a change agent network where we've had people come and say, I want to be part of this, and there's nothing more valuable than someone like a supervisor saying, I want to be part of that change, because they see for them, in a lot of cases, with the supply chain disruptions that we're seeing today, it's not working for them. Ryan talked about it's changing every hour, so they want to have the tools to be able to make that impact. So adoption is critical, and we're seeing they want to be part of that adoption, which is great.
Great. And Brian?
Yeah, so I'm not going to pile on the adoption thing, but one thing that I will say on that is it's explaining to the users that cloud is a game of futures, right? When we had older ERP platforms, it was like, here's what you get, and don't get upset, and yeah, maybe we'll change it in 10 years, right? This whole notion of new releases every single quarter, I think, is extremely attractive to end users and help drive that change. But, besides that, the other largest, most critical thing on these engagements is data, right? As Joy mentioned, we've got one shot to put in the next application for the next 20 years, and if you just throw garbage data into it, you're not going to get your returns, right? So one of the things that we do on many of our engagements, and many of my clients have done, have chosen to go down the product data hub track earlier on in the engagement just to get some of the data right. I mean, Melissa and team at the same time of doing planning had to control those planning data attributes was essential. So we put in product data hub there first, and we're doing that at many other clients. So yeah, data is the most important thing. And when we talk about these new business models and X as a service, et cetera, the data that automates that allows that to happen, to get that ROI may look very, very different structurally from how it used to be. And so, just take the time and get in front of it and start working through that data over and over and over again.
I would like to add a couple things to that. So I agree, obviously, with both. But when I think about our experience, it really is data, and it's continuing to understand and maintain that data, because it's not just through an implementation and it's done. It is going to take, to your point with the data hub, or some process where you are evaluating your data routinely. We have a lot of sourcing rules. We have a lot of, I mentioned the logistics side of things, and it really is critical in terms of managing that, because the other side of it, and I think this is a positive from the adoption piece, is as we have recently launched planning, when we don't get a result we expect, there's a couple things that I think about, and it's, well, why is that happening? Is it just now we have visibility to something we didn't have before? Is it the data is not accurate, and therefore we now understand through good training and good adoption what to expect and what we would see, and we know where to go and find solutions to these things. And there's many examples that we've had in our short time where we have traced it back to some data issues on our end that we need to manage. And so it is just going to continue to be part of our requirement to make sure that we're getting the best output from the cloud that we can.
Very good point. And I think we have a question right here.
Okay. My name is Nikunj Mehta. I'm from a company called Falconry. We are a new Oracle Cloud customer and a partner for many manufacturers. I heard a lot about shop floor workers who are working there. I believe that one of the last frontiers for enterprise software is the data that gets produced on the shop floor, typically from machines. I know this panel hasn't addressed it, but I'd like to ask, what is the path for enterprise transformation that weaves the data from the shop floor into this decision-making process, one? And two, how have you seen trust issues being dealt with on the shop floor, especially because they are being asked to do something in a way that is different from how they have decided in the past how to do things? Yeah. I'd like to hear your reaction to that.
I'd love to answer that question.
Go ahead.
I'll take the back half of that, but go ahead.
So here's a scenario I see on the majority of manufacturing sites still to this day, right? I'll walk on the floor and I'll see an operator at a machine with a pen and a piece of paper. He's recording the amount of transactions that he's done. He then hands it over to a production supervisor, a sales supervisor, who types it into Excel. Why? Because they're going to print out some pretty chart to put up by the machine. At the end of the day, those all get collected. They go to a foreman sitting in the front office, and he goes ahead and does manufacturing completion transactions. Not only is that terrible for inventory accuracy, but just think about the amount of labor it took to execute that process. if we take a look at IoT, and there's nothing new about IoT. IoT has been around for years. But what's new with IoT and exciting is the ERP application and the IoT application sitting together and talking together natively. That's extremely powerful. So I just recently made a smart home all on my own, and I'm not very technical. The ability to add sensors or hook machine-to-machine things so that the operators on the floor don't have to worry about just interacting with the system. It just happens. It's extremely powerful, right? And so those two operating together in one cohesive environment is one of the, in my opinion, is the biggest gain in going to cloud as a manufacturer. I would ask anyone looking at moving to cloud, whether it's on-prem or legacy, that's a manufacturer, even if you're just doing a small pilot, turn on IoT. It's the best thing you can do.
So I'll add to what the second part of your question, which was, how do you get people in the shop floor motivated? In addition to sort of the change network, change agent network that we have, as well as engaging them early. The one other thing that's really worked for this client and a couple of others is how you incentivize that change. And what do the people at the shop floor level really have to look forward to? At Astec, we've gone and looked at an entire executive compensation model and a bonus structure linked to transformation objectives being achieved, right? And we've gone to the point of this being published in the proxy, right? So we've gone out to the street and said, in order for us to hit these transformation objectives, here's what the bonus structure of executives downward is and how you link those. What's interesting is, yes, money is a great motivator, as we all know. It actually works. You take it down to the shop floor level and show them that, listen, you hit these milestones, you adapt these things, you will get the benefit long term. And to Basman's point earlier, setting that structure up early, setting those expectations and having people jump in and say, I want to be part of that change network, is really what's transformed this company. Right? And I believe that that'll give it long-lasting value.
And then Basman, you're actually implementing manufacturing also. So do you have any thoughts to add on potentially how to get people leveraging it and using it?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's the early adoption that's been important for us. Having them there as soon as we had something that they could touch, data they could see, starting with the supervisors, because if you can convince the supervisors, they'll work on making sure that it's being adopted all the way down to the employees. And like I said, our journey is a little different in the sense that the tools we have today are not working for our employees. So we're a little bit fortunate from that standpoint as well. So it makes that adoption much easier for us. So.
Can I add one other thing to that question also, is that, at ADS, what would occur prior is that, there would be an email, a phone call. I need you to run this pipe. I need you to produce this. Our changeovers were high, the confusion was high, and actually, as we've gone through the scheduling and planning, this transformation, there is much more clarity, and there is a point where the team on the shop floor can say, this is why I'm doing this. This is the directive. Here's the person, who's sharing this direction with me, and there's better conversation and communication that's happening as to the why and the need. And it also takes the noise out of the shop floor. If there's issues, talk to your centralized planning person. So there's some big benefits there also from time management and execution as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just say one thing. The one statement that you guys made early on, labor shortages are real. Executives tell us that the primary reason to do IoT or AI is because they can put capital to build new plants. They can't find people to run them.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
point.
Great point.
Please.
Yeah, hello. So many manufacturers operate shop floor 24/7. So how do they deal with the quarterly update downtime cycles?
I'll take that one. Yeah. So as you're going through an upgrade process, you're gonna pop it into a test instance. You're going through, you're testing it, you're beating on it. The window of outage is pretty darn small, right? So we have seen people for however the period of time based on the size of your instance, et cetera, have processes that you can work around it on for 1 hour on a quarterly basis. We found different ways and different processes to do that, right? And it's different for all of our clients, just depending on the nature of their business. But the benefits that they're getting out of cloud versus I'm going down for a small fraction of time, I mean, is in my opinion, is quite insignificant, at least from what we've seen.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that one? Are you talking about companies that are more in process industries or discrete?
Process.
Okay, so there's a difference in that because you
there
can't
is
quite
there
shut
is
down,
and
right? And I see your point, right? Which is that's why I asked. If it was discrete, it's much easier to talk about it, right? From a process industry's perspective, I'll tell you, this is one that they deal with a lot, right? And we've not found an absolute magic bullet to make it work, but there are stoppage points that you can build in to do these things. I think the question that we've asked our clients, and the clients ask us, is what's the degree of change that's being introduced in every quarter update? Like if it's not that significant, if it doesn't change the existing process, then there's one way to deal with it. If it's significant, then you absolutely have to talk about downtime.
Okay.
And Oracle is providing and working on zero downtime updates to it, and I think we've done that in a number of modules already, and we'll continue to enhance and expand. So I think there will be a point where it'll be similar to was in the business suite previously, where there was zero downtime for the update. But great question, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we have one question. We have 48 seconds left, so if you ask.
Let's go. Hi, I'm Mukil Khandelwal from Axia Consulting. I think it's great to hear the success stories over here. My question is for Melissa and Basman. You have great length. You have discussed about the benefits to the business and how business has been adapting to the cloud strategy. My question is kind of on the IT support organization side. What are the challenges you ran into as it comes to supporting cloud, which I'm sure for both of your organizations would have been a huge change compared to your current ERP applications. What are the challenges you ran into, and what are the learnings you would like to share with the group over here?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to apologize, and I think maybe if you don't mind, we can answer that question if you come up right afterwards. I want to summarize real quick. I want to thank PwC for sponsoring. I want to thank Melissa and Basman for participating here. I just want to let everyone know there are a number of sessions. You can see some of them here that are, I think, great sessions for you to attend. Later on this afternoon, we have another panel discussion with Kohu and with Thermo Fisher Scientific and around supply chain. And again, there's a demonstration area out that you can get a lot more detail in there. And I think everyone here is available just for a few minutes. If anyone has any questions, we can talk with you right afterwards. But again, thank you, everybody. Thanks for your participation.
Thank you.